Okay, well, welcome back to what appears to be the Computer Science of Dentistry Father's Day extravaganza. I'm just going to keep on pumping these things out. Here's another use of the virtual vacuum former within D3 Mesh. Again, this is all done within Mesh Mixer. You do not need D3 Mesh in order to do these things. It just simply automates the process for you, and it kind of inputs the best parameters for whatever dental indication that you're doing. So that took some time. So I think it's a smart thing to have something like this to where you don't even have to think about it, and it just does it automatically. But again, you don't need D3 Mesh to do this. This can all be done manually within Mesh Mixer. Okay, let's get right into it. So the first question is, what is a CG matrix? What are you even talking about? Literally no clue what you're talking about. Well, hopefully not everyone said that because, man, a long time ago, I used to be a hound on Dental Town. Not necessarily posting, but just like stalking everybody. Any of the big names, Ed, and Cory Glenn, and all those. There's so many more too, but it's just been so long now. Only because I've been busy with this stuff. But at one point, I saw Cory Glenn do one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my entire life. He took, and I'll explain why in just a second, but he took a case that was going to be a full mouth rehab, and Cory, or Dr. Glenn, pardon me if I am not saying this correctly, and he does have a video on this, so go check out his channel. I guess I will make which way? This way. I will make a link show up right here, so you can go check it out, and a link in the description as well. But it was just really cool for me, and it kind of opened my mind a little bit to different alternatives and different possibilities. So in this video, what he does is he does there's a, like I said, it's a full rehab kind of case. It's not necessarily like decay per se. It's more of like reduced dentition, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and wear and attrition, that type of thing. So he did a full wax up. Well, took initial impressions, did a full wax up, I think by hand. I'm not quite sure on that one. This was quite a while ago, so maybe it was by hand. Could have been virtually, but once he did that, he printed the model out. He did an Essex style vacuum form or thermoform on that model, on the waxed up model, and he painstakingly, and this is literally a full rehab case, and he painstakingly went through after that whole thing was done, and he trimmed the appliance, the Essex, interproximally on each contact. He went through with a scalpel and made a nice little slice interproximally. Not all the way down, but just enough to where the contact point typically is. All the way through on each single contact. I'm telling you, this is amazing. Once he did that, he then had all these little mylar bands ready to go to then kind of put in between each, or to insert into those little scalpel slots. So so when he did do this kind of like injection mold wax up technique, it wouldn't bond the teeth together, and it's just, all of it was brilliant. So I kind of just alluded to the point, I guess, but he took this guy's reduced dentition, and he had this Essex type matrix that he then placed over the reduced dentition. I think he acid etched and bonded, maybe beforehand or with the tray on. I can't quite remember which one. Probably before, and then put the tray immediately on right afterwards. And he used a flowable composite, a bioactive flowable composite called Activa or Activa. Not sure. I know one's yogurt as well, so I don't want to, say the wrong one. But it's one of those. It's Activa or Activa. I think it's Activa. It's a flowable those new type of like bioactive composites, and dual cure as well. So even if you don't get a full light cure on it, it should cure on its own. And it's got this perfect little tip, perfect little metal tip like flowable composite does. But it's meant for like bigger, like kind of bulk fills, I would say, and core buildups and things like that. So, and it looks great, polishes well. Okay, cut to the chase. Puts this thing on. Puts little tiny perforations onto each tooth of where the Waxup was. Inserts his Activa tip, and after everything's etched and bonded and everything, and just basically injection molds every single tooth, and then finishes it with burrs and strips. And it was amazing to me. It really was mind-blowing to me, because that type of treatment, the end result, the aesthetics, and then as it turns out, I think, because he did a little bit of a follow-up on it, but the aesthetics and the fairly moderate term prognosis of this thing was pretty good. They weren't chipping, they weren't cracking, they weren't breaking, and again, this wasn't supposed to be a final treatment plan, or I guess treatment specifically, but it was more to kind of get this patient into the proper occlusion, and to kind of get like a trial run for how things were going. And it was just amazing. And to do that with composite and this very novel way of approaching that, it just saved that person so much money. I mean, the only other way to do that is with long-term temporaries, and I guess if you have a mill, that's great. Not all of us do, and if you're not doing that, then it's just crown and bridge all the way across. And I'd say the vast majority of the patients that I see couldn't even, they could barely do a couple crowns, let alone an entire thing like that. So just a brilliant solution to a big problem in dentistry, a low-cost full mouth rehab with bioactive, fluoride releasing, a composite that just looks great. So, okay, enough of being a Cory Glenn fanboy. And I know it probably seems a little bit, I was gonna say it might seem odd, since he's part of Blue Sky Bio and all that, but dude, the guy's a GOAT, man. And if you don't know what a GOAT is, he's the greatest of all time. That's what that means. G.O.A.T, greatest of all time, dude. He is the GOAT as far as this is concerned. Again, Dental Town, I remember him doing this ridiculous duplication of a 3D denture via 3D printing. It was like the first time anyone had done it, and it was just like slowly arising from the resin. He did it in like time lapse, and it again blew my mind, got me to where I am right now, and definitely inspired me. So again, not to really be like a super crazy fanboy or anything, but fuck it, I am. And the guy's awesome. So this is in tribute to him. And since I've talked so much without doing anything so far, I'm just going to get right into it and try to go as quick as I can here. So what we're looking at right now was just a simple triple tray impression with bite reg. So definitely that's why it looks horrible. And this is not what you'd want to do. Ideally, I don't have an intraoral scanner at the moment, so this is just a quick way to get like a basic kind of model, so I can do some workup, wax ups or whatever the case is. So that's kind of what I do right now, and that's the result you see here. And the lingual looks pretty decent, but the buccal is pretty artifact ridden, but that's okay for this part. So this is the pre-op. This is what he looks like. He's got a lot of decay, a lot of broken down teeth here. What's interesting with this guy though is that it feels like arrested decay. I mean this is just scanned, you can't see anything, but this is all pure black. Like this is black, this is black, like a big part of this is black. But I mean, it's a little tacky with the Explorer, but I don't think it's that deep as far as like decay goes. I think a lot of it's arrested. I think he's been doing a good job of trying to, on his own before he saw me, just trying to like stop things from going crazy and I think that's the result. I think enough fluoride and enough home care, he got to this point. So I don't think these are unsalvageable. I think he can definitely save these. And this guy doesn't have a ton of money at all. He can't afford one, two, three, 3 crowns. He just can't. He doesn't have that type of money. But he might have enough money to do 3 kind of big fillings, like, build-ups, in preparation for crowns later down the road, and just hopefully these build-ups just last a long time. And that's kind of the goal on this particular case. So pre-op, that's what that looks like. And again, excuse the poor quality as a triple tray with Regicel, bite registration material. So that's why it doesn't look that accurate. Or I mean, not accurate, but it just has these weird artifacts in it. This is the wax up that I did, virtual wax up. Simple, didn't take long at all. I think these are the Brennus library teeth. And it wasn't just, at least on the incisor, it wasn't just a matter of, just popping teeth in here and making them in the right orientation and alignment, which, could arguably may not be correct to some orthodontists, but this looks good, and I think it's going to be fine for him. But this definitely is, this tooth right here and this tooth right here. These are just full blown library teeth. This one, the facial side of it is the library tooth, but on the lingual, I was able to use the attracting tool, the attract brush within Mesh Mixer. I'll show you real quick. It is under Sculpt, and look, I already got it selected. Under brushes, there's attract, and once you put that tooth, that library tooth, kind of, you superimpose it on top of that, like, little shell that was there. Oops. So yeah, I mean, he had an entire lingual surface here that is perfectly fine. It was just the facial that was kind of messed up. So with the attraction tool, you can take that pontic, or not the pontic, but the library tooth, and use that brush to kind of push it against, make it attract to the original surface, the pre-op model. So you don't have to do anything on the lingual at all. There's no addition to it, and there shouldn't be, and the better thing is you don't have to adjust any occlusion or anything. It doesn't change that at all. Here and here on these 2 teeth, yeah, I'm going to have to do some adjusting, and I didn't factor that in. I didn't grind any occlusion from the lower dentition in. It's just mainly for a wax up here, and then once it's in, then I can kind of clinically get the occlusion appropriate. So that's what that is. But pre-op, wax up, get that done. And it was just kind of cool that you can use that tool too. It's almost like veneer the tooth, virtually, and then with composite, that's what it'll be. It'll be like a composite veneer. Which can also be done per tooth with this tool as well, but what we're doing right now is just the wax up. So we got the wax up, we got the pre-op model. Now it's time to use the virtual vacuum former again, and we're going to make this CG matrix. Again, we can do an open model or a closed model, but this one is closed. Yep. And this is on the waxed up model. Do we need to do any virtual extractions or undercuts or no, we're good. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, but certainly in the next couple updates here, this button will be enabled, which will allow you to kind of do the steps that I did right here through D3 Mesh without having to do it manually. But for the time being, I had to do this manually, and that button is not enabled. But that's what that would do. You'd press that button, it would show up a little pop-up with different tooth libraries and how to attach them to the model and the process of doing that. So we don't need to do any of these things right now, and we're just going to hit next. Again, just kind of, let's see, this, I don't want to ruin anything, but I'll minimize this. Yep, did it. I ruined it. I was going to say, when this application is in here, in the bottom right corner of Mesh Mixer, you can see how many triangles your particular model that is selected has. And I think this one is pretty significant, maybe like 350, 360, 360,000 triangles. And again, as I was mentioning on the prior video, all scanners, all desktop intraoral scanners, whatever the case is, and whether you pop them through different software and then now it's in D3 Mesh, they all have different triangle resolutions, densities, orientations, and what's going on right now is an attempt to take all of those possibilities and just kind of funnel it into one common underlining mesh. It's a little tricky, and it's not the most perfect thing at the moment, but that's the goal here, and it does help a lot. If I didn't do that step, everything would just go wonky. So that's what that does. And then now we're at the step where we want to draw the appliance border. So, but it looks like my select brush is not the drawing brush. So I'm going to hit reset outline, and that should bring it back to the lasso. Okay, we're good. And what we're doing here is that CG matrix. So the thought is we're going to be waxing up this tooth, and this tooth. Let's see, let's just call them the correct teeth here. So 6, 7, and 8. We're going to be waxing, or not waxing, we'll be restoring those teeth. But the wax up matrix will be mainly for this particular segment right here. But if you start to think about it, excuse me, if you want this matrix that is going to fit over the teeth to stay on and to be accurate and to not bump loose when you're curing or rinsing or moving things around, I mean, it probably would be okay to just kind of do, let me just get back to this other brush here. It'd probably be okay to kind of do just like this segment, right? Like you don't really need everything else. I mean, that will just fit directly over the portion that you're working. Maybe extend it half a tooth one way, half a tooth the other way, or full tooth the other way. And that'd probably be the minimal thing you could do. But to get all the other teeth also included in this tray, I think it's going to really stabilize things and allow it to seat properly and to not move nearly as much. So we're going to include as much as we can. Now we're back to the lasso. We have our waxed up model here, and we don't need to be too careful about the margins here either, because it's okay for it to be, for some of it to be on the tissue. It shouldn't be overextended or drastically overextended. So I'm just coming around and, well, I was going to say, well, you could maybe just come over the top of this, but this is the last tooth here, so I do want to include at least, maybe probably 1.5 teeth on either side. And you can see right there that this got warped. So let's see. I guess it doesn't matter if I go on top of it, but like down like this, it wouldn't really matter. Everything would still fit just fine. But I'm gonna go like that. Kind of go around that part, and then hit a lot of this palette for more retention. I think I'm gonna even try to grab more of that palette. Coming all the way around. Again, kind of going a little bit further beyond the the hard tissue and just getting a little bit onto the gingiva. And that should be a good selection. And that will be our Waxup Matrix border, appliance border. And for this, do we want an impression gap? No, we don't. Do we want, what kind of thickness do we want? As I mentioned, and the reason I say this kind of like tongue-in-cheek confidently is because I tried this many different thicknesses, and to save you guys all a bunch of time, I would keep it up around like 1.5 to 2.5. That for sure will get you a successful print. I think I was trying to print at like 0.5 millimeters or like 50 microns or whatever, and I was getting some of them were okay, they would come out, but a lot of them did not come out okay with the indirect bonding tray resin, which is what we're going to be using. So I'm going to say we're going to want, and it doesn't really matter here, right? I mean, we're going to use this once, throw it away. We probably want more thickness if it means that it's going to have a better chance of printing successfully and also not tearing on us and also going through the whole, clinical environment. So we don't really need to get this too thin. I think 2 millimeters is just fine. Might be a little thick. 1.7. I'm going to go 2. 2.0. That's what we said originally. We're going to go for it. Enable strict minimal thickness. Not that important. Anything around 2 is going to be fine. And next. And this is not what I have right here. This is the indirect bonding tray resin. And it was a prior attempt at doing this on my own, just kind of testing around. But I don't know if you can see that or not. But it's very flexible. I think I might have just ripped it there. But this could easily just, it's like bleach tray material. That's what it feels like. So that was a little Waxup that I had. And then here's a thicker one. And this is an indirect bonding tray that I did as well. You can check out my live stream. I did it on that. Both of these I actually did designed on my live stream. But that's when I realized that it needs to be printed out a lot thicker. And that's what this guy is right here. And again, let's see if I can... How do I... Oh yeah, you can kind of see that. I'm twisting this guy pretty good. And it's maintaining its shape, its form. So, cool. That's what that looks like. That's what that feels like once it is printed out. If you don't have a Moonray, get one, because unfortunately Formlabs does not support this resin yet. Maybe you can get it to work like that. I haven't looked into it recently. But actually, I'm going to take that back. Do not do that. Only use resins on supported 3D printers. Don't try to get things to work, especially biocompatible ones on other printers. It's just not a good idea for a lot of reasons, including FDA considerations. So now that we have this, we have our outline. Do we need any tissue or occlusal stops? Again, no, not for this. And as many tissue or occlusal perforations. And I think there's a better way to do this at the end. But another way you could do this, because we're going to have to use that flowable composite, that tip. It's going to have to get inserted into this matrix somewhere, and you could either do it after you 3D print, you could drill a little hole, but that kind of defeats the purpose. So I can show you 2 different ways to do it. And we'll try the first way, just using the D3 mesh perforation tool, and we'll say like kind of right in the middle here, and then maybe one right on the back. And those will be our test perforations here. So we're gonna go next. So it deletes those areas from the mesh, and then as it starts to build out, those areas just become perforations. But again, I think there's a cleaner, better way to do this. And I'll show you in just a second. And I don't think we enabled minimal thickness here. It does make it solid, but it doesn't consider the minimal thickness as a necessary factor here this time around. So this little hole here is where you'll insert the. I guess you could. I mean, you could use any you could use anything you want. I mean, a compule tip would fit just perfectly in there. And even if it didn't, you could, buzz it out a little bit and make it fit. There you go. And this is all clear, so the light here goes right through it. And actually, this is the wrong model. Let's put it back on this one. Well, even now you can't see it because it's on the wrong on the tooth that's the least broken down. So let me show you what I was talking about as far as the other way to do these perforations after this is done. I'm going to come back to my my CG matrix here, and I will do the select tool. Maybe just a little bit bigger, and do that. I do a one click there, and one click there on the intaglio, optimize everything, hit B, smooth the boundary, hit accept, and then there's a tool called tube handle. Click on that. Check it out. You got a perfect perforation into the inner side of that matrix. So I like that better than this other way for this particular indication. So I'm going to go accept, and that's how that works. And maybe I'll kind of do the same thing where, oh geez, let's go like this. These are going to be all of our kind of perforations. Okay, those are 3 teeth. Oh, let's do the other side as well. So I did one on the incisal, Oh, this is not needed. And right on the lingual, and then one on the incisal here. Okay, optimize, B for smooth boundary, accept, and start to choose these individually. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Double click on that one. Oh, look at that. It's the one I didn't do. Optimize, smooth boundary, enter. I have that one selected. It's a lot smaller, it looks like. So I'm going to expand that boundary. Okay. And then double click on this one. Tube. Got it. That one. And you can only do one tube at a time. Make sure I'm on the right one. Both selected, and tube. Select that. You can double click on a face group to select the entire group. Those are both selected, and tube. And we'll do this one on the incisal, and that one. Double click, both selected, tube, and right here, and right here, tube, accept, and okay, we got our perforations in there for either the tip of your compule or your full bowl composite to go into, or where the extra comes out from, extrudes out from. So that's what there's multiple perforations for. And then you say to yourself, well, okay, great, you're all done. Perfect, great job. Way to replicate what Cory Glenn did. But it gets even better. So we have what we have here, but we can even go a step further. I still have my my select brush here. I press S to get that tool going. And I think I'm gonna make this just a little bit bigger, like 25. And 25 is it's an arbitrary number. It may be different for each model, but for me, just kind of, I don't know, maybe about as small as, yeah, the diameter of the perforation, maybe a little bit smaller. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start right on this spot and just kind of draw that and just pretend like I'm doing the scalpel thing that I was mentioning before. So this is our scalpel cut. You could do this post-print as well, but heck, why not, since we're here. And that's part of the fun of what we're doing, kind of coming down the proximal, and also come just around a little bit as well there. So you can kind of bend that mylar down and around if you need to. So that's that side, that's that side. Okay. And I'm gonna go, well, before I do that, I'll do this underside as well. So that is between these two teeth. Same thing on the intaglio. Coming up the interproximal. I know that looks fairly horrendous, but once you kind of optimize and smooth the boundary, I'm gonna go 100 on the smoothness, 0 on preserve shape, just because it makes it a lot just smoother. We do want to preserve mesh boundary. We do not need to preserve group borders, and we will create new groups. Okay, so there's our cut on the both sides. Now what? Delete? What do you do? Nope. Tube handle. Bam. You don't have to do this, I don't think, but I'm gonna raise up the refine here. Hit accept. Look at that. Look, that's amazing. And it's got the contour of the tooth. If you go on the inside here, you can kind of see that even a little bit of the interproximal gets captured on this injection mold too. So it's not, you don't just like hack out the middle of it. It does have some emergence profile and embrasure profile. So that's the first one, and we're going to do this to each other one. So see if I can go pretty quick here. I'm kind of trying to stay on the outside of the margin. Actually, let me do that better. Come down here and come down. I don't need to get that far. Right about there looks good. That looks good. Come on, the intaglio. Selecting right up the embrasure and trying to stay on the outside of the gingival margin there. Okay, I got that down on both sides. I'm going to make sure that little triangle is selected for no good reason whatsoever. And I'm going to hit optimize and then B for smooth boundary. I'm going to go 100. I'm going to go 0. And again, I mean, all this should be optimized, and that's why I created D3 mesh, and this stuff will be implemented down the road here. But this is just too good to not show you how to do this right now. It will be automated in the future, but this is the manual way to do it, and this is just a really, really cool thing. So that's that. We're at 0, 100, 0. Everything looks good here. Preserve mesh boundary. We don't need to preserve the groups. Create new groups, accept. And we have both selected. We're going to go tube. Sweet. Little hole here. No big deal. Don't worry about that little guy. Uh-oh, it's red. Just hit the inspector, and I'm going to try to click on that, see if it takes care of it, and sure enough, it did. I'm going to hit I again, check. Oh, it did not. Do it again. Oh, this is kind of getting out of control. Inspector, flat fill. Okay, there we go. Just fine. Almost had a panic attack. Okay, so one more, or two more, I should say. I'll try to go as quick as I can, like this. Come up. And coming down through. Try to stay on the, again, the outside. That gingival border here. It's not always super possible, but that looks good. Come down here. Looking good. Both sides. Optimize. B. Smooth boundary. 100. 0. Accept. Ah, shoot. Control Z. This is fine, but I'm trying to stay consistent. Preserve mesh boundary. Uncheck preserve groups. Create new groups. It looks good. And then edit tube. By raising the density, that's what caused that little defect the last time, so maybe I won't do that. That looks good. And one last one. Actually, I'm going to undo what I just did there because this tooth is not one that we're worrying about, so I can actually come on the outside of that kind of margin there. Right there. And right there. And come to the intaglio. And maybe after a little bit of clinical research here, it might be a better idea to do kind of one tooth at a time or make a matrix for each tooth, but I'm just kind of showing you the full gamut. Optimize, smooth boundary, 100, 0. Okay, this time it looks good. And those are both selected. Tube. Not going to worry about the refinement. Accept. And there we go. The CG matrix, a tribute to Cory Glenn and his incredible, innovative thinking. And this is just a conversion to the virtual digital world, and it prints, and I haven't tried this clinically yet. But again, I'm kind of looking at this printed, and I know it's gonna work. It's better than a vacuum form Essex. It's got more accuracy, and all these little slices are just they're just very accurate, and they have the nice kind of profile extending from them. So that's that. That is the CG matrix, and let's put it back on the pre-op model so you can kind of see what's going on. If you look down here, you can kind of see the broken down teeth, the Waxup on top of it, and then the 3D printable matrix to then use clinically. So that's that. I hope you like this, and I hope you've got your brain moving a little bit, got the gears moving, trying to come up with some new different techniques for this new digital workflow era. So take care, have a good night, and thank you.